So as we have seen, there are distinct differences between the phonemes of Bangla and English language. So now we will take a look at the segmental issues in L2 acquisition. Now, it might be difficult for Bengali students to differentiate between English alveolar fricative za and post-alveolar fricative ja because both these sounds are absent in Bangla. Rather, Bangla has one voiced palatal stop ja, which sounds similar to English fricatives za and ja, but these are actually different phonemes. According to best theory of perceptual assimilation, if the L2 contains a phonemic contrast in which both members are perceived as a single native language sound, establishing different categories for the L2 will be extremely difficult. And this kind of discrimination is known as single category pattern. As we can see in this slide, in L2 English, there are two phonemes, za and ja, which are mapped onto one single L1 category, that is ja. So in this case, overcoming this discrimination would be extremely difficult because here two contrastive target language sounds are mapped onto one native language sound. Now, Bengali students could also mispronounce the fa and English fricatives fa and va because Bangla doesn't have these phonemes, these fricative phonemes fa or va. Rather, Bangla has the aspirated stops pa and bha, and Bengali students can very well mix up the pronunciations of fa and pa and va and bha. According to Best's perceptual assimilation model, in this case, the contrasting L2 phones are perceptually assimilated to separate L1 categories, and this is known as two-category pattern. For example, in this case, the two L2 phonemes fa and va are mapped onto two similar but actually different L1 phonemes, tha and bha. And as we have seen earlier, this kind of discrimination is could be quite easy to overcome because in this case, two contrasting L2 phonemes are connected to similar but not identical L1 phonemes. Now, in Bangla, there are dental stops tha and da, which are similar to English dental fricatives tha and da. However, in Bengali students might mispronounce the English fricatives tha and da more strongly as plosives, whereas the articulation of these fricatives are very weak. This could also be an example of two-category pattern. For example, here as we can see, the L2 phonemes tha and da are connected to similar but actually different L1 phonemes tha and da. And in this case, this difficulty is supposed to be easy to overcome because here the contrastive L2 phonemes are perceptually assimilated to similar but actually different L1 phonemes. Now, in Bangla, there are two flaps, ra and ra, but in Bangla, there is no approximant. Therefore, it might be difficult for Bengali students to pronounce the English approximant ra, and they might mispronounce this English approximant as the flaps, where the tongue tip only taps once on the point of articulation. Now, it might be difficult for Bengali students to know the rule that English voiceless stops pa ta ka are aspirated only in the beginning of a stressed syllable because in Bangla pa ta ka, pa ta ka are distinct and separate phonemes, and these phonemes can occur either in the beginning, middle, or end of words. So therefore, Bengali students might overgeneralize the rules of aspiration and they might end up producing aspirated forms of pataka even in situations when they do not aspirate. And regarding vowels, one issue could be that it might be problematic for Bengali students to perceive the differences between English long and short vowels because in Bangla, vowel length is not a phonemic feature. And another issue could be that Bengali students might have difficulties in perceiving the English vowels schwa or a because these vowels do not have any exact equivalence in Bangla. Because Bangla doesn't have any mid-central vowel, but Bangla has only one low central vowel a. And this would also be an example of single category pattern. In this case, two contrasting L2 phonemes schwa and a are being mapped onto one L1 phoneme a. And as we discussed earlier, these sort of difficulties might be very difficult to overcome because in this case, two contrastive L2 phonemes are perceived as single L1 phoneme. Therefore, Bengali students might very well mispronounce these diphthongs as monophthongs, and there might be some issue with syllable structures because as we have seen earlier, English syllables can have complex consonant clusters in onsets and codas, whereas Bangla doesn't have any such complex clusters in onset and coda positions. Therefore, English words with clusters of more than two consonants could be problematic for Bengali students. For example, it might be problematic for Bengali students to pronounce words like string or lapsed. Now, we can consider prosodic issues in L2 acquisition. According to Roach, English has stress-timed rhythm, that is, stressed syllables tend to occur at regular time intervals, irrespective of whether they are separated by unstressed syllables or not. And English stress system is complex. That means in English there can be primary stress, secondary stress, or there can be no stress on syllables, and again in English, whether a syllable will be stressed or not is dependent on whether the syllable is heavy or light, or what is the morphological composition of the syllable is, what is the grammatical category or historical origin of that syllable is. On the contrary, in Bangla, all syllables of a Bangla word are stressed equally. Thus, Bangla seems to have a syllable-timed rhythm in which all syllables tend to occur at regular time intervals. For Bengali students might end up stressing all English syllables equally, thus having a strong foreign accent.